The message didn't say she was leaving. It said she'd already upgraded. That's what hit me first. Not the betrayal, not the shock, but the confidence in those words. Like I was an outdated phone she'd finally replaced. It came at 2:47 on a Thursday afternoon while I was sitting at my desk, buried in quarterly numbers, half listening to a muted news channel. My phone buzzed once. I expected something harmless, maybe a reminder about dinner, maybe a question about groceries. Instead, the screen lit up with a sentence that felt rehearsed. I'm leaving you for someone who actually loves me. No build-up, no explanation, just a verdict that if this story already has you leaning in, do me a favor real quick. Hit subscribe, tap the like button, and leave a comment. Not because the algorithm wants it, but because stories like this only matter if they're heard. Now let me tell you what happened next. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Not 10 seconds, longer. Long enough for the office around me to fade into background noise. What surprised me wasn't the message itself. It was how theatrical it sounded, like a line lifted from a bad TV drama. After 12 years of marriage, this was the grand finale? A text message delivered between calendar alerts? She added another line before I could respond. Don't try to stop me. That's when I smiled. Her name is Laura. Or at least, that's what I'll call her here. My name is Michael. We met in our 30s, built a life that looked solid from the outside. House, routines, holidays with her family, predictable comfort. I was the reliable one. The man who remembered birthdays, fixed things before they broke, apologized even when I didn't need to. Laura used to say she loved that about me. Turns out, she loved it the way people love safety rails, right up until they decide they want excitement instead. That I didn't call her. I didn't rush home. I didn't ask who he was. I typed back 2 words, safe travels. Then I locked my phone and went back to my screen, pretending the numbers still mattered. They didn't. My mind had already shifted into a different gear. Not panic, not grief, calculation. See, Laura always believed I was the softer one in the marriage. She confused patience with ignorance, kindness with weakness. That misunderstanding would become important later, though at the time, all it did was make my next decision very easy. That I finish my workday like any other. Answered emails. Sat through a meeting with Brian from accounting. Even laughed when Tom, a colleague close to my age, mentioned his divorce lawyer was a miracle worker. Funny how you hear things differently when your life quietly splits in two. By 6, I was sitting alone in my car in the parking garage. The sun was setting between concrete pillars, casting long shadows across the windshield. I picked up my phone again, not to call Laura, but to dial a number I'd saved years earlier and never thought I'd use. Peterson and Cole. The receptionist answered. I need to speak to someone about divorce proceedings, I said. Tonight. There was a pause. Then, we can fit you in at 7:30. Perfect timing. The drive home felt unreal. The house, my house, waited at the end of a quiet street lined with trees just starting to turn. We bought it 8 years earlier. At the time, my credit was excellent. My income steady. Laura's financial history, complicated. The bank made its choice easily. Every document that mattered carried only my name. Back then, Laura laughed it off. We're married, she said. What's yours is mine. I believed her. I loved her. I never changed the paperwork. Not out of strategy, but out of forgetfulness. Sometimes forgetfulness turns out to be a gift. When I walked inside, the house was silent. Her car was gone. I poured a drink, sat in the chair she hated because it threw off the balance of the room, and listened to the quiet. It didn't feel empty. It felt clean. My phone buzzed with messages from her friends. Karen, Melissa, Janet, all variations of the same hollow concern. Are you okay? We're here for you. I deleted every one without replying. At 7:25, I was sitting across from David Cole, a man with sharp eyes and a smile that suggested he'd made a career out of other people's bad decisions. So, he said, skimming my notes. She ended a 12-year marriage by text. Yes, and the house is solely in your name. Yes. And you want to move quickly. I looked him straight in the eye. I want to move correctly. He smiled. David leaned back in his chair like a man settling in for a long chess match. He didn't rush his words. Men like him never do. They let silence do the heavy lifting. The office smelled faintly of leather and old paper, the kind of place where bad decisions came to be translated into legal language. She left voluntarily, he said finally. That matters, especially how she did it. I nodded. She announced it. Like a victory. David's pen paused. Public confidence often masks private recklessness. For the next hour, he walked me through options with the calm precision of a surgeon. Emergency filings, asset separation, communication boundaries. He didn't sell hope or revenge, just clarity. When I stood to leave, he asked one final question. Do you think she'll come back and try to undo this? I pictured Laura standing in a restaurant, unable to send food back even when it was wrong, apologizing to waiters for mistakes they'd made. No, I said. She believes in her choices. Completely. David smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Belief doesn't change paperwork. Driving home, the streetlights blurred past my windshield like markers on a timeline I was already moving beyond. The house greeted me with the same calm silence. I didn't turn on the television. I didn't check my phone. I slept deeply, the kind of sleep that comes when a decision has already been made for you. Friday morning arrived sharper than usual. I woke before my alarm, brewed coffee, and noticed how different everything felt when no one was there to comment on it. No criticism, no tension disguised as conversation. Just space.by8. I was at the bank. The branch manager, Susan, recognized me instantly. She'd overseen our accounts for more than a decade. When I requested the transfer, her eyebrows rose slightly. Not judgmental, just curious. Will your wife be joining us today? She asked. She's pursuing a new life, I replied. I'm securing mine. Susan didn't ask another question. Professionals recognize moments they shouldn't probe. Within minutes, numbers shifted quietly from one column to another. No drama, no raised voices, just confirmation receipts sliding across a polished desk. Next came the credit cards. Laura had always favored the ones with rewards and flashy branding. I canceled each one calmly, explaining the situation only as much as required. The representatives offered sympathy in neutral tones, as if this scenario had its own category in their system. By late morning, I was back at work. But I wasn't the same man who'd left the day before. Conversations sounded different. When Mark from operations complained about instability in leadership, I listened closely. When someone mentioned restructuring, I took mental notes. Stability, I was learning, was something you protected actively, or lost suddenly to AT lunch. Curiosity got the better of me. I checked Laura's social media. She hadn't wasted time. Photos from a high-end restaurant downtown. A raised glass. A caption about choosing happiness. The man's face was partially visible, cropped just enough to feel intentional. His name, I'd later learn, was Jason. At that moment, he was just a shadow in the background of her performance. Comments poured in. Encouragement. Applause. A few confused questions from relatives clearly learning the news in real time. And one comment that stood out, quiet but sharp, from a woman named Rachel. Good luck. I saved everything. David's voice echoed in my head. Documentation matters. By mid-afternoon, Laura's tone shifted. The messages changed from triumphant to irritated. We need to talk. This affects both of us. Answer your phone. I replied once. All communication goes through my attorney. The silence afterward was immediate and profound. That evening, I changed passwords. Email, banking, streaming services, even the wireless network. Each reset felt like reclaiming something that had been assumed rather than earned. I ordered food from a place Laura hated and ate it in the living room with the volume turned up too loud. It wasn't rebellion. It was relief. Around 10, headlights swept across the walls. Her car. I didn't move. I heard the door open. her heels clicking with practiced confidence. She called my name softly, like nothing had changed. She found me in the chair with a book open on my lap. "We need to be adults about this," she said that I looked up slowly. "You made an adult decision." I'm responding like one. Her certainty wavered for the first time. She noticed the quiet, the absence, the fact that the house no longer adjusted itself around her. "You canceled my cards," she said. "You moved money." I protected myself from someone who declared she was no longer part of my life. That's not how marriage works. I stood, careful, deliberate. Marriage requires conversation before exits. You chose an announcement instead. For a moment, she had no words. I'd never seen that before. "This is temporary," she said finally. "We'll figure it out." I met her gaze. "You already figured it out." She left soon after, taking nothing with her. The door closed behind her with a sound that felt final without being dramatic. That I sat back down, alone again, and realized something quietly profound. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel like it was waiting for approval. Saturday morning didn't arrive gently. It announced itself with the low rumble of a truck outside and the sharp echo of unfamiliar voices carrying down the street. I stood at the kitchen window with a mug of coffee and watched Laura step out of a rideshare, sunglasses on, posture stiff, like she was arriving for a performance rather than dismantling a life. Two movers followed her lead, waiting for instructions. A few neighbors lingered longer than usual with their dogs, pretending not to stare. She didn't use her key. That detail mattered more than I expected. She knocked. When I opened the door, she spoke first, fast and rehearsed. "I'm just here to get my things. Let's not make this difficult." Difficult. The word landed flat. She walked past me without waiting for permission, heels clicking against the floor she'd once obsessed over keeping pristine. The house felt different with her inside again, tense, like air before a storm. Jason hovered near the driveway, pretending to be helpful while checking his phone every few seconds. He didn't come in. That told me everything. "I'm taking the bedroom set," Laura announced, already pointing. "No," I said calmly. She turned, genuinely surprised. "Excuse me. It was a wedding gift from my mother. Your parents gave us cash. We used my account." Her face shifted through disbelief, irritation, then offense. "You can't just decide that." "I'm not deciding. I'm stating facts." Jason finally stepped closer, trying on a voice he clearly wasn't used to using. "Look, man, maybe there's a way to be reasonable here." I held his gaze until he looked away. "This isn't your conversation." Laura grabbed his arm quickly, a reflex more than a choice. "It's fine," she said too quickly. "We'll replace it." With what? I wondered, but didn't say. The movers worked for hours. Boxes came and went. Laughter from Laura's friends drifted in awkward bursts. Women who'd sent me messages of concern days earlier now avoiding eye contact entirely. By mid-afternoon, the house was stripped of her presence in uneven patches. Empty drawers, bare walls where art had once hung. Silence returned the moment the truck pulled away. That night, David called. "She reached out," he said. "She wants to discuss reasonable arrangements." Already, she's experiencing financial pressure. I let that sit. From credit access, living expenses. Also, I did some background on Jason. And divorced. Significant obligations. Behind on rent. I closed my eyes briefly. Not in relief. In recognition, Sunday was quieter. I reorganized rooms, moved furniture, reclaimed spaces I'd unconsciously surrendered. The living room looked better without decorative clutter. The kitchen felt larger without unused gadgets. It wasn't about erasing her. It was about rediscovering myself inside the space. That by Monday, the messages intensified. Calls from unknown numbers. Voicemails layered with accusation and panic. I didn't listen to most of them. David did. "She's claiming you're being vindictive," he said later. "That you're forcing her into a corner. She walked into it." I replied. Midweek brought cracks in her news story. Her social media tone changed. No more celebration. No more couple photos. Jason's posts turned vague, defensive. Comments disappeared. Silence where there'd been noise days earlier. Thursday evening, she called from a number I didn't recognize. "You're destroying my life," she said, voice thinner now. "I'm protecting mine." "He's reconsidering," she said quickly. "The legal situation scares him. Reality does that. I don't have anywhere to go." "You had somewhere," I said quietly. "You left it." There was a pause, heavy and unfamiliar. "We can fix this," she said. "Counseling. A reset." "The time for that passed before the announcement," I replied. "Before the celebration." She whispered my name, the way she used to when she wanted something that IT didn't work, BY Friday. David's update came with a tone I hadn't heard before, something close to disbelief. "He ended it," David said. "This morning." I didn't respond. She's scrambling. "No permanent place. Calling everyone." I looked around my house. Quiet, stable, grounded. "That's unfortunate." Saturday brought rain. And with it, a knock I didn't expect. Her mother stood on my porch, shoulders tense, eyes tired. "We need to talk," she said that I stepped aside. She sat in the living room like a guest instead of family, scanning the room as if searching for proof of something lost. "She made a mistake," she said softly. "She made a choice." I replied. "There's a difference." She's scared. "So was I said. "I just didn't run." She left without resolution, carrying more questions than answers. That evening, the phone rang again. This time, it was Megan, Laura's longtime friend. "She tried to stay with me," Megan said. I said no. "Why tell me?" "Because she keeps saying you're cruel for not taking her back. Like this was an experiment that failed." I laughed once, short and humorless. Experiments have results. By the end of the week, one truth had settled in completely. The life she left wasn't waiting for her return. The first official papers arrived on a Monday, hand-delivered by a woman who looked more like a librarian than a messenger of chaos. She asked my name, confirmed my address, and placed the envelope in my hand with a nod that carried zero emotion. When she left, the house felt heavier, not threatening, just real. Decisions had weight now. Consequences had addresses. David called an hour later. "She's filed a response," he said. "Emotional distress. Claims abandonment." I let out a slow breath. "She texted me that she was leaving." "Yes," he said calmly. "And that text is doing a lot of work for us." By midweek, Laura's behavior shifted from desperate to erratic. She stopped asking to talk and started showing up. Once, I came home to find her car parked across the street, engine running, lights off. She didn't approach. She just sat there, watching. When I pulled into the driveway, she drove away without a word. Another time, she appeared at the grocery store I'd shopped at for years, turning down an aisle too quickly, pretending coincidence. I didn't acknowledge her. Silence had become my boundary, and it was holding. Thursday afternoon, David called again, this time sharper. "She brought someone to your property." "What kind of someone?" "An appraiser." That got my attention. I left work early. When I turned onto my street, I saw them immediately. Laura standing in the yard with a man holding a clipboard, gesturing toward the house like she still owned the air around it. I parked, got out, and walked straight toward them. "What exactly are you doing?" I asked. The man froze. Laura didn't. "I have rights," she said quickly. "I'm assessing assets." "You don't live here," I replied. "And you didn't ask permission." The appraiser cleared his throat. "Ma'am, you said this was fine." "It's not," I said. "This is private property." The man apologized and left without argument. Laura's composure cracked the moment he was gone. "You planned this," she snapped. "You made sure everything was in your name." "I worked," I said evenly. "I signed. I paid. You benefited." "For 12 years," she shot back. "Yes," I said. "Until you opted out." She stood there for a long moment, calculating, then delivered what she clearly thought was leverage. "I know about your retirement accounts." I nodded. "So does my attorney." "I'm entitled to half." "You're entitled to what the court decides," I replied. And courts don't love surprises. The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, closed it, then walked away without another word. That night, I slept with the quiet confidence of someone who'd drawn a line and meant it. The next escalation came faster. I arrived home Friday evening to find my front door unlocked. Not open, unlocked. Inside, voices echoed. I stepped back outside and called David. "She's inside my house," I said. "With people. Call the police," he replied immediately. Now, they arrived within minutes. Laura stood in the living room with a locksmith, arms crossed, eyes blazing with misplaced certainty. The officer reviewed my documents calmly, then turned to her. "Ma'am, this is not your residence." "I'm his wife," she insisted. "I have rights." "You have legal avenues," he replied. "This isn't one of them." The locksmith packed up without protest. Laura argued until the officer's tone changed. Then she left, escorted, shouting that this wasn't over. When the door finally closed, I stood alone in the room she'd tried to reclaim. The violation wasn't physical. It was symbolic. She still believed the rules bent for her. Saturday morning, David's voice carried urgency. "She was detained last night." "For what?" "Trying to access Jason's building without permission." I said nothing. "There's a restraining order now," he continued. "Against her." He filed. The irony didn't feel satisfying. It felt inevitable. By Sunday, her support system had collapsed. Calls from her sister, her parents, friends who sounded more exhausted than angry. Everyone asking the same question in different words. "Can you fix this?" "No," I said each time. I didn't break it. That evening, Laura appeared once more. No makeup, no confidence, just tired eyes and trembling hands. "I need help," she said. That I stood in the doorway, unmoving. "You needed honesty weeks ago." "I made a mistake." "You made a decision," I corrected. She looked at the house behind me like it was a photograph from another life. When I closed the door, the sound echoed longer than I expected, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. That I felt finished. The final hearing landed on a Tuesday, so ordinary it felt intentional, like the universe refusing to dramatize what had already exhausted itself. No crowds, no speeches, just paperwork, signatures, and the quiet shuffle of people who'd seen this story 100 times before. I sat at the polished table in a neutral-colored room while Laura sat across from me, smaller than I remembered, shoulders rounded inward, as if trying to take up less space in a world that had stopped bending for her. She didn't look at me. David slid the documents forward, his voice steady, procedural. The terms were clear. The house remained mine. Retirement accounts untouched. No spousal support. Personal belongings already removed. What Laura walked away with amounted to what she'd carried in when we met, plus a used car and the echo of choices she could no longer revise. She hesitated before signing. Her pen hovered, trembling slightly. For a brief second, I wondered if she expected me to stop her, to soften, to offer something unscripted and forgiving. I didn't move. I'd learned that hesitation was often a last attempt at control. She signed. That was it. Outside, the air felt sharper, cleaner. Autumn had settled in while everything else unraveled, and the trees lining the courthouse steps burned with color. I walked to my car alone, not because I had no one, but because solitude finally felt like a choice rather than a consequence. Later that afternoon, David called with the final confirmation. "Filed and recorded," he said. "You're officially done." I thanked him and hung up, letting the word done sit without trying to decorate it. Weeks passed. Then months. Laura moved back in with her parents. I heard it through channels I no longer paid attention to. Unemployed. Quiet. The noise that once surrounded her had evaporated. The same people who applauded her boldness now avoided the topic entirely. It turns out admiration is fragile when confidence collapses. That I didn't feel triumphant. I felt settled. The house changed with me. I repainted rooms without asking permission. Replaced furniture because I liked it, not because it matched someone else's vision. The office became a place of focus instead of compromise. Evenings stretched longer, calmer. I cooked what I wanted, ate when I wanted, lived without bracing for criticism disguised as concern that I started dating again. Not urgently, not desperately. Coffee, conversation, women who listened and spoke with intention. No declarations, no performances, just mutual curiosity. It amazed me how different connection felt when it wasn't laced with quiet resentment. One evening in October, a neighbor mentioned seeing Laura drive slowly past the house. She didn't stop, just paused, then continued down the street like someone checking the address of a place that no longer belonged to them. I nodded, unsurprised. Some habits outlast meaning. That night, standing in my backyard under a clear sky, I thought about the text message that started everything. The certainty in it, the confidence, the assumption that I would collapse, beg, negotiate. She believed leaving would teach me a lesson. It did. It taught me that stability isn't boring when you're the one who built it. That respect doesn't announce itself. It proves itself quietly over time. That love without responsibility isn't freedom. It's chaos wearing a flattering disguise. Laura chased excitement and found noise. I protected peace and found clarity. 3 months after the divorce, David forwarded me a message from her attorney. She was requesting a post-divorce reconciliation conversation for healing and closure. I read it once, then deleted it. Closure doesn't require consensus. Sometimes it only requires distance. By winter, my life had a rhythm again. Work felt purposeful. Home felt earned. I woke up without tension, without rehearsing conversations that never led anywhere. The absence of drama wasn't empty. It was spacious. People sometimes ask if I miss her. I miss who I thought she was. I don't miss who she revealed herself to be. She believed marriage was a safety net she could abandon and reclaim at will. I believed it was a foundation that deserved care. When she jumped, she expected to be caught. I chose not to reach, and that made all the difference. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or mistaken for someone who wouldn't stand up when it mattered, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Your support keeps these stories alive, and I read more of them than you might think. I'll see you in the next one.